Hello my friends, welcome back to Milk and Cookies Total War. I'm IndyPride, and today we're back on Total War Warhammer 2 with the High Elves and Bretonnia 2v2 against the Skaven and the Dwarfs. So there's a lot of synergy between these two factions. For one, Bretonnia and the High Elves have the two best air forces in the game. I think by this point we all know how powerful Star Dragons are. The single strongest entity in the air in the entire trilogy probably, and backed up by the Royal Pegasus Air Force Goon Squad. There's really no faction combination in the game that will be able to deal with them in the air. Now, I wouldn't really recommend Royal Pegasus Knights against the Dwarfs. There's not a whole lot for them to do there, and the magical attacks are less than impactful against the Dwarfs, typically speaking, but they can be very strong against the Skaven if, for instance, they bring a Screaming Bell, if they bring a Plague Furnace, or if they bring something like a Hellpit Abomination or a bunch of Rat Ogres. So they can still be very impactful in this matchup. I wouldn't say they're great versus the Dwarfs, though. But there's a lot more synergy between these two factions. For one, the Fay Enchantress, with Regrowth and Earthblood, will be able to keep my Star Dragon, and the Prince mounted atop him with the Sword of Belcor Hadris will keep him in the air for much longer if he gets focused down. All that healing will be very nice. Fay Enchantress fantastic for support in that way, and with the favor of the Fay, that plus 44 melee attack buff, super strong on a Star Dragon who already has 64 melee attacks. So you add 44 on top of that, you're getting almost 100, you're getting more than 100 melee attack on a Star Dragon, so that is very, very strong. Now looking at my build here, I have 3 White Lions of Krace, 1 Dragon Prince of Calidor, 3 Sword Masters, which was pretty much a hard counter to what the Dwarfs were trying to bring, because the Dwarfs in general are going to struggle against armor piercing. And then some Spear Men-at-Arms shields, a bunch of them for the Bretonnian line. Of course, the Fay Enchantress, back here with her Grail Knights. So what does she have? She has Regrowth, and no, actually she just has Earthblood, so Flesh of Stone and Earthblood. I would have liked to have seen Regrowth in this battle. I actually thought that he had brought it. He might have forgotten it. And then, yeah, Hero is playing Bretonnia in this game, by the way, one of my good friends. And then Grail Knights in the back here with that bonus versus large and magical attacks. So we definitely have the bonus versus large down here. We're going to be able to slaughter any single entities that we run into, but the Warp Lightning Cannons are opening up fire on my Star Dragon now. So taking a look at the Skaven army in the front, a bunch of Skaven slaves and clan rats, more clan rats back here, Lord Skrolk, Lord of Pestilence and Decay, and then there's some Death Runners on the field, that Armor Sundering, Weeping Blade passive, minus 32 armor I believe, is going to be extremely impactful against, oh, it's minus 50% armor, wow, that's really strong, against my Sword Masters and some of my other units. So Plague Monks on the flanks, some Poison Wind Clobadiers to deal with the Dragons and with the Royal Pegasus, and the Warp Lightning Cannons again still firing at our single entities in the air. For the Dwarfs, bunch of Dwarf Warriors, and anchoring the center here, he does have Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. First time I've seen them on Mortal Empires, should be very interesting to see how they do. Backed up by Grombrindal, the White Dwarf, the grudgeful reincarnation of Snorri Whitebeard, Longbeards, Dwarf Warriors, and Thunderers in the back. Some Rangers actually operating out on the flank as well. So I think this build is actually quite good against Bretonnia. Dwarf Warriors will be able to trade very cost effectively against all the Spearmen at Arms, beat them handily into the ground, and Foot Squires are really the only thing that he has to worry about in terms of Bretonnia's build. So let's get into play and see what's happening here. So my Star Dragon is getting sniped out of the air right now. Now, ideally, if you see a Warp Lightning Cannon doing this to you, just pull back and get out of the range of the artillery. No real reason to hang around here. I'm trying to dodge the shots, and it's not working. Even though the Warp Lightning Cannon did take an accuracy nerf, it's still going to be hitting pretty much every single time it shoots in, and I'm taking a ton of damage. Now, it's interesting that he's going for that. I think that he should be going for the Royal Pegasus Knights, because if you drop a model from these guys, they aren't going to come back. They're dead. They're just straight up dead. That HP will be permanently lost from the unit, and each Warp Lightning Cannon could actually scythe through the unit and probably kill 2 or 3 models, no problem. So if I was using the Warp Lightning Cannon, I wouldn't be going for the Star Dragon, because healing will actually get him up to full. It cannot for the Royal Pegasus Knights. But the melee fight looks like it's about to begin in earnest here. Let's take a look as the Azure Spearmen charge in. No real reason to brace. Big charge, and here come the Sword Masters and the White Lions of Krace. Let's get an awesome sweeping shot down the line as the fight begins in melee. So Sword Masters, of course, not going to have any issue with the Clan Rats whatsoever. Should be able to cut them up, but Lord Skrolk will be able to summon units in the back lines if he decides to do so. Weeping Blade and the Death Runners will close in and begin their fight. Blood spurting everywhere. That's a really beautiful shot. And let's take a look at how things are progressing. So let's go back into slow motion and see what's happening here. So, Swordmasters already up to 42 kills off that charge, but of course it's on Skaven Slaves, so nothing really interesting going on there. Dwarf Warriors and Gromberdal and the Dwarfs are moving up, and meanwhile my Illyrian Reavers, which I haven't talked about yet, are moving around in the back lines, and I actually missed it, but I charged into the Thunders. Not a very good engagement, actually. They're getting scythed apart by the Thunders from long range, getting completely destroyed here, and the Thunders actually made good account of themselves in melee with that 80 armor, and my Illyrian Reavers will rout. So poor use of my light cavalry, but that is giving me more time for my Dragon Princes to get around and get some kind of decisive hammer and anvil off. And this is what the Royal Pegasus Knights should be really good for. Charging in into the Poison Wing Globadiers, shutting them down. They do have 100 armor, but Royal Pegasus Knights would be able to make short work of them. And let's put it back into fast motion here as the Rat Ogres charge in. Grail Knights exactly where they need to be to shut down these Rat Ogres. Fantastic engagement from Hero, and even with some of that debuff going down on the Bretonnian Grail Knights, we should be able to slaughter them. Now I have to get down into melee and try to break line of sight with the Warp Lightning Cannon because my Star Dragon is taking so much damage right now. Past half HP, Earthblood doesn't actually heal anywhere near as much as it used to. So the healing is still going to be useful, but not the most amazing thing ever because Earthblood doesn't heal anywhere near as much, and the Star Dragon has a very massive HP pool. So the Warp Lightning Cannon is definitely cutting through it faster than I would like, and the healing won't be so amazing. We're going to press play. Royal Pegasus Knights instantly shutting down that Warp Lightning Cannon once they got in. There are some clan rats trying to protect it, but they'll be able to cycle charge out of there pretty nicely. It looks like the Dwarfs and Bretonnia have engaged. Foot Squires should be able to make short work of Dwarf Warriors. And the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers have gone into melee as well, and that's going to be very tough for the Bretonnians to deal with. Longbeards and Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, I'd say that this melee engagement should probably go the way of the Dwarfs, but that's because a big reason for that is because he has a lot of his units over here, right? The Grail Knights are working with me in tandem. We've caused a chain route to the Skaven line, which makes sense. They don't have great morale, and we are pushing through past them. Dragon Prince has made it into the back as well, shutting down those Poison Wing Globadiers, and I don't want them to get bogged down. So continuing the charge through. Big charge into the Warp Lightning Cannon crew. Oh man, the Dragon Prince just got destroyed. And following through on the Warp Lightning Cannon, silencing the crew, and just gotta keep them moving, because these Thunders are beginning to fire in as well. And I'll definitely take a ton of HP damage if I sit around for too long. So we'll go for the Thunders next. And the Dragon Princes of Kalador will smash into the Dwarfen line, surround them. They're taking withering fire from many different angles, and I only have one unit of Dragon Princes, so the Dwarfs are doing a pretty good job of shutting down my Dragon Princes back here. They should have like Slayer or something patrolling. I don't think he went for any in this game. Against Bretonnia and High Elves, I would suggest you bring some. But my Dragon Princes are... We started out this battle blue. Boys in blue are now turning red. Another big charge into the Thunderers, and Grail Knights have gotten into a really good position as well. Maybe some rear charges into the back of the Dwarf line. In the central engagement. Star Dragon completely covered in blood. Look at that. How much HP does he have left? 625 HP, even with the Earthblood heals, even with the favor of the Fay. Not going very well for the Star Dragon. So what I'm going to do at this point, and this is what you should do if you ever see your Lord get this low. Yes, it's great to have their impact on the main line, but if they've taken that much damage, you'll get such a big morale penalty if you leave them in the fight, if you leave them in range of the artillery or whatever could kill them. So he's chasing after Skrull. Liber Bonicus actually did a number on my Star Dragon as well. That's another reason why he's very low. We'll pull him out, maybe chase down Lord Skrull, make sure he doesn't come back. But after that, I need to pull him back away from the fight and just give him time to heal. Fay Enchantress has provided a lot of support for him, and it looks like another heal's going off right now. So Earthblood, yeah, Earthblood again. But Regrowth would have been so much better here, for sure. Swordmasters, what are they up to? 133 kills. Of course, numbers can be inflated against Skaven. Poison Wing Globadiers, a little bit of friendly fire on their own Death Runners. But the Swordmasters were a fantastic pick so far. Done a lot of work for me. And the Dwarf line has actually pushed through a lot of the peasants, which you would expect. Spearmen got kind of run over. And the Foot Squires are making good account of themselves, backed up by the White Lions of Krace. But you can see the Longbeards and Norgrimling's Ironbreakers have pushed through the center and are now trying to shut down the peasant bowmen. Star Dragon and my Prince have closed down on Lord Skrull again. And Lord Skrull should not be able to win this fight. Eaten alive by the dragon. He falls, and the prince wins that duel. So only 1,000 HP left. The Skaven are in tatters at this point, and our cavalry's done a good job of making sure they don't come back. The Dwarfs, on the other hand, are in much better shape. Northernly's Ironbreakers are actually still full HP. They're about to get a rear charge off the Longbeards into the back of our White Lions and the Foot Squires, which could cause a chain rout in the center of our army. Blasting charges from the Northernly's Ironbreakers coming through, wrecking those Swordmasters as flame rises from the earth there. Big explosions. And these will be very tough to bring down, but they're in a big square, and I noticed it, and you can see that my Star Dragon is coming into support. Let's take a look at this. 1,000 HP, but I haven't used any of my breath attacks so far. So as we move towards the late game here, should be able to support really nicely. Let's go into slow motion here. Star Dragon breath on a big blob of Northernly's Ironbreakers in square formation. It was a full unit, and after that, look at the blood. Look at the death and destruction. The entire unit is melting in a conflagration of flame and blood and disaster for the Dwarfs. It was a full-strength unit of Ironbreakers, 1,500 gold, and they lost half their models in that one cast. So this is the one thing you can't do against Star Dragon Breath, which I have noticed. I've played about 15 or 20 games since the patch went live, and Star Dragon Breath is way better than it was before the patch. It might be too strong, I don't know yet. It's seeming like the Dragon Breath, because it's always hitting in the center of the units most of the time, is doing an obscene amount of damage, which is cool because you're definitely paying for it. 2,400 gold on a Star Dragon, that's exactly the kind of target you want to be hitting, right? A big armored target, it has a ton of AP, flame damage and all that, so that's really good, but you cannot be in a square formation and stationary. Again, Ironbreakers aren't the most mobile of infantry, so you moving really fast isn't going to be an option for them, but you don't have to be in that big square, and if you do that, you're concentrating all the fire into the center of the formation. If you're in a spaghetti line, that means a lot of the Dragon Breath will end up missing, going over the head of the target, or just concentrating all the flame on a couple models instead of a big juicy target, a big blob like they were there. So again, it can do a number on heavily armored targets. Put your guys in spaghetti line. There's really no reason to be operating in a big square formation like that, and they got punished accordingly there. So I am interested to hear what you guys have to say about Dragon Breath so far. I'm sure plenty of you have gotten some good games in at the moment. Do you feel like it's too strong right now? Do you feel like it's in a good spot? Again, obviously with a dragon, a Star Dragon, I paid 3,000 gold for that unit. It should be very, very strong with the Dragon Breath, but I feel like some people are probably going to say that it's too strong right now, and maybe it is. I don't know. I'm going to be interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. Royal Pegasus Knights come in from behind, charge into the flank of the Rangers, who look so badass. They're an amazing looking model for the Dwarfs, but they'll be silenced in melee, and the Royal Pegasus are not really fantastic for long drawn out combat, but they have more than enough strength to deal with Rangers. And with the Swordmasters coming in, the Fay Enchantress getting in there as well, casting some Lore of Life magic to blow them up, getting decapitated everywhere. Dwarf lines are being run over, and things are starting to look very good for us. Now, my Dragon Princes did try to silence the Grudge Thrower crew in the back. That's up to 76 kills. It's done a ton of work for the Dwarfs this game, but my Dragon Princes did die. Surrounded by the Slayers, or by the Dwarf Warriors, rather. There were no Slayers in this game, and I think only one model managed to make it out. Oh, 5. So I guess I don't know where the rest of the unit is. But they should rout pretty soon here. Support from the Grudge Throwers coming in, ripping up those Swordmasters and White Lions. Grail Knights getting in there as well. And the Dwarfs are making their last stand. They're Skaven allies in a most lore-unfriendly team up there, which is fine because it's fun to get some of the interesting matchups that don't necessarily reflect the lore that well. Skaven have pretty much abandoned their Dwarven allies, which you would expect. Swordmasters getting in there, slicing them up, making mincemeat out of the ratties. And that was pretty good synergy rather, with the Bretonnia and High Elves. So I think the air power was a little bit wasted in this game, honestly. The Star Dragon, of course, is going to be amazing versus the Dwarfs and against the Skaven because it can cause all those terror routes. They have very low leadership. The Royal Pegasus Knights, I don't think they were necessary this game, but they did well. I mean, 64 kills and 72 kills. Can't really complain about that. I would say that it's better, if you're going to be playing a 2v2 with these two factions, to invest heavily in air against factions that might actually invest in air. If you're going up against the High Elves and Bretonnia, probably don't want to be investing much in the air battle because you aren't going to win it. Star Dragon and Royal Pegasus Knights will stomp you. And yeah, if you put like a regrowth or something on Royal Pegasus Knight, they'll be able to, I think, slaughter most single entity monsters in the game. I don't know exactly how the matchup between a Star Dragon would go. I'd imagine the Star Dragon would win, especially if it got a decent breath attack off that killed 4 or 5 models. But that's an interesting fight for sure. Don't contest the air against High Elves and Bretonnia. They're too good. They're 1 and 2 in the entire game in terms of their air superiority. Ground Brazil, the White Dwarf, wading into a bunch of peasant men-at-arms, surrounded by some sword masters as well. I'd like to see him get some decapitation. Yeah, there we go! Sliced that sword master's head off. That is just brutal, and the head just disappeared. Now, I am actually interested, and I'll probably show some of it in another battle, but the blood pack is kind of goofy at the moment in a couple ways. Not just because I feel like, for one, I've never really been the biggest fan of the blood completely swamping the models. It kind of takes away from the beauty of the models themselves. I'm cool with the blood being over the top, but I feel like 5 seconds into melee, every single unit on the map is just like covered in red, and you can no longer see the models very well. So I think this is a little bit too much. Like, I'm fine if that's how it is at the very end of the battle, but not when they've just gotten into melee and gotten their first kill. I think it gets over the top too quickly. I like the explosion and everything. I'm fine with the amount of blood, just not how much blood actually covers the beauty of the models. The other thing with Malekith, and a couple other animations I've seen, you know how in the trailer Malekith did the shield punch to a white lion and then cut his head off over the top of the shield? Well, that animation is in the game and it's awesome, but there are a couple bugs with the blood pack right now. In fact, one of the ones I've seen is he does that animation and he'll cut their head off, but the model's head doesn't get decapitated or cut in pieces at all. The body stays intact, and then another cut up body falls out of the fully intact body. So I wonder if you guys have noticed similar stuff like that. It isn't very widespread, but especially with the Malekith animation. Try that out, see if it happens on your computers too. I noticed it and I thought it was very strange looking, so hopefully that gets sorted out pretty soon. But yeah, fun battle. Star Dragon Breath got me like 50 kills, or maybe more than that in the course of the battle there. I think he got another breath attack that I missed. But that first one against the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers was amazing. Don't get in a square formation if you see Dragon Breath coming. Keep your units moving, keep them in spaghetti line, and you'll mitigate a lot of that damage. The other thing, if you let a Star Dragon or any dragon breathe into your unit from the flank, you're going to get punished very heavily as well, because all the overshots will instead go down the length of your line instead of missing over the top of the unit. So just be very cognizant of where a dragon is. They telegraph their attacks when they're about to breathe. So play accordingly, spaghetti line, and turn it so that you don't have that Dragon Breath going down the length of your flank. But yeah, a lot of kills from the Prince there. Good support from the Fay Enchantress to keep him in the fight, because that Warp Lightning Cannon could have very easily finished him off, and things might have gone poorly from there. Swordmasters killed it, but their numbers will be inflated against the Clan Rats and the low-tier Dwarf Warriors, because they brought a lot of numbers. Illyrian Reavers were poorly used by me. Dragon Princes did a lot of work. They ended up getting 3 chevrons that battle, because they killed Poison Wing Globadiers and some other stuff in the back. Hero and Fay Enchantress didn't do a lot of killing, but you don't really expect her to. She didn't bring any offensive spells. Royal Pegasus Knights were used very well. So were the Grail Knights, and we worked in tandem with the cavalry pretty well. His line did poorly, but you expect to see that against the Dwarfs, and the Peasant Bowmen not going to be able to do a lot of damage against the missile block chance of the Dwarf Warriors. For the Lord Skrolk and Clan Pestilence, Rat Ogres didn't do particularly well. Warp Lightning Cannons were utilized pretty effectively, cutting down my Star Dragon, but weren't able to finish it off. And if you invest that much into killing the general and don't, that's very bad. So I think you would have been better off going for the Royal Pegasus Knights, but I understand why you wanted to kill my Star Dragon. It is the biggest threat on the field from any single entity, and the most expensive as well. Death Runners didn't do a whole lot against Swordmasters. Don't really expect them to, even with their armor piercing. Skaven definitely had trouble that game. The Dwarfs did much better, I think. The Dwarf Warriors were a good pick against the Bretonnian line, and I think the Dwarf Warrior, or the Dwarf player in general, played pretty well. So, glad you guys, or hope you guys enjoyed that game. Of course, plenty of more content coming very soon, and I'll see you next time. Indie Pride, signing out for now.